Okay, so the next thing that I'd like to change in this to resemble more closely to that page is those little icons here that we have at the bottom. Okay, so as you can see here in the original version, we have rollovers on those buttons with even a transition because it's not all of a sudden that the color changes. There's a slight transition between the two colors. And of course, in our example here, we don't have that rollover effect. So this is something that I want to get. So if I take a look right now at the code, I'm using Chrome, by the way. So using Chrome, you can use that menu here, and we have more tools, and we have the developer tools. You can use the Control Shift I on PC, or you can also use the F12 key. I don't know the exact shortcode on the Mac, but I assume that will be something similar to this one, but you can always go inside the menu here to get it. So F12 in my case, and I'm going to look at those icons here. So if I select that button here, I can target one element, and as you can see when I mouse over something, it shows me what I'm selecting and it changes the code at the same time at the bottom. So let's select this bigger one here. As you can see, we have different code, different CSS style here. We have a link on it, and we can see that this is all part of a UL li, which means simply that it's an unordered list. In other words, this is part of a list. Then this is inside the list icon, CBB icon list instance, which is inside the icon list, WR element icon list, which is inside the data role here. So this one is the root one, and we have all of that which is in the block. So this one is the one that we have directly inside of our ProStyler page when we entered an element. So if I go back to my page here where we have the list icons, so this is for the John Watson here, so social person. So if I click on that to edit it, so this row here is exactly what we have in this particular page. Alright, so if I take a look at each of the circles here, you will see that we have a div with different class, but we have here the class CBB icon, and we have another class CBB icon style circle, because of course in that we can have different styling. So we can have the circle background, we can have the simple or the square background. So this class determines which one will be used. So I could target this one directly, but the problem is that I know that later on we will have the same problem here with the rollover effect and with the even links that we're going to see later on. Okay, so if I target all the CBB icon list like that, CBB icon style circle, sorry, it will affect those as well. And those don't have the same color. We go from gray to green, and these are the opposite, from green to gray. So if we target all of those using that CBB icon style circle, it will target the other ones here at the same time. So I don't want that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to simply wrap those here, all of them, into a class, because we have 3 of them, we cannot use an ID. So we're going to wrap the entire row inside an ID. Let's do it that way, using an ID, but for the entire row, not just those 3 elements here. And that way we will be able to target just the elements inside of that area here. So we could call that social because that's for social, but we won't do that just on this one and this one. We'll do that on the entire row. So let's call that our team or superstar team or staff if we take the term that we have in this particular section here. So one or the other will be exactly the same. This is just for us to be able to remember what it is. So let's call that team to go with the one that we currently have. So I'm going to close that. And like I said, I'm going to put that to the entire row. So we can use this one. Sorry, I lost my spot. So Fresh ID Solutions, here we go. This is the one that we want. So we have a sub row here. So we can use that sub row, not necessarily using all of that row here. So that sub row would be enough. I'm going to edit that. And I'm going to give it an ID of team. Whoops, sorry. Click Save on that. Save my page. And of course, nothing has changed visually so far. But I'm going to go inside MicroThemer to work with that. So again, I'm going to have to refresh my page because this ID didn't exist previously. So I'm still going to target those circles, but I'm going to target the circles with the ID previously of team. So I'm going to double click on this one here. And as you can see, it selects just the one in this list. That's not what I want. And I can go up like that, a couple of versions. What we need is the one with the circles. But as we said, we need the one with the ID. So I could go up a couple of versions here, but I won't target the circles anymore. So that's not what I want to do. So as you can see here, CBB icon circle, target those and those at the same time. So we don't want that. So that's why I'm going to add just in front of it, each time that we use an ID and start with the number sign, sorry, used to the French keyboard, use a number sign, and then we specify the name. In this case, team simply, and a space. So that will target these here, but just if they are inside the team or the number sign team ID or row in this case, sub row to be more precise. I'm going to give it a name, and remember this will be simply a comment in MicroThemer. So let's call that social icons or teams social icon, let's say. So teams social icons, and I'm going to enter that into the content section. You can create your own folder, by the way, if you wanted to modify that differently. And I'm going to create my selector. Alright, so nothing to change on the regular state, it's just on the over state. So forgot that section when I created my my selector. So in that special selector, I can click on it to edit what I had. And if we want to target just the state, I would call that a state. The real term is simply a pseudo class. We're going to simply add that at the end. Okay, there's no real easy way to target that directly with MicroThemer, but I know that I need to target my state when we mouse over it. And the real state for that, the real name is colon and then hover. It's not over, it's hover. So when we mouse, the mouse hover it. So I'm going to edit my selector. And again, nothing has changed because we didn't style anything. So now what we want that green color. So if you don't remember the color, there's a little tool called the color picker here, called the Colorzilla, that you can use. You can also simply double click somewhere else, like for example, I could use those circles here. And at some point in the inspector, if I take a look at the color here, I'm going to have it there. So one way or the other, whether you use RGB or the hexadecimal, which begins with the number sign, doesn't really matter with ProStyler. So I'm going to simply cancel that. I just wanted to have the color. So on the overstate, by the way, I'm going to change that name here, Team Social Icon Hover, just to make it clearer. So on the overstate, I want to change the background color. So background is here, the color is here, so I'm going to click on that and paste on the RGB section what I just copied. So as you can see, it works right away. And the other point is that when we mouse over it, it changed for the icon changes to white. So let's do the same thing. So we can change directly the icon because we cannot change with that rule. Okay, I could try to change maybe the font. So it might be the font inside of it. Let's try that, because in fact this could be a specific font. So maybe it will work. We'll see. And bingo, yes, it does work. So this is really an icon with some text inside of it. So it sees that as a text. I think it's the I tag for italic that has this icon. So bingo, with that, it already works. If you want to add the transition effect, okay, as I said, when we mouse over it, it's not as instantaneous as what we have right now. Okay, there's no transition here. It's really direct, which is not the case here. There's a little transition, quick, but there's one. So if I take a look at the code in this particular case here, I'm gonna do the same thing with Chrome and come to click here, and just as we've seen previously, let's look for what we would call a transition. So let's translate here, transform. We're looking for this thing here. On every link, there's a transition. So not only links like this one, so every links everywhere on the page, if we see even text links, there's a transition of 0.2 second. Which transition? Well, depends on what is changed. In our case, what is changed is the background color and the font color. So we have that transition and 0.2 seconds. So we don't have that option anywhere in ProStyler here, and not in ProStyler, sorry, in MicroThemer. But we can always add it manually. So what I need to do is simply, I'm going to copy that because we need to specify everything. So I'm going to edit that here, select that section here and copy it. Fortunately, I need to go there as well. And I think Sebastian told me that he's working on an update where we could add some code to what we already have here. In other words, we wouldn't have to create another element like we will have to do now, but it doesn't seem to be ready for now. So for now, we'll have to do that double way. In other words, we'll have to create two different styles, one manual and one automatic. But in some point soon, there will be a way to be able to simply add to an existing element here. So for example, here we can see the code, but unless it has changed, we cannot edit the code. It's read-only feature. Okay, so maybe at some point. But what we can do right now is come here and we have that greater than lower than sign that allows us to enter the code editor view to add some code, manual code here. So what I have selected, I'm going to copy that here. Then the way to write some CSS, I need to put my opening curly brace here. And it's going to put the closing curly brace automatically. And what I need to add is simply that transition. So if you want to support really older browser, like older version of FileZilla and Chrome and so on, like for example version 10, you might have to do what we call prefix styles. So for example, if you take a look here, you will see that we have the Moz transition, the WebKit transition, and the O transition. Moz stands for Mozilla, which is Firefox. WebKit stands for WebKit browser, which is Safari and Chrome. And O stands for Opera. So as you can see right now, the Chrome will override all that when they have a line through like that. That means they are overridden with the final transition. So if you want to support really all the browser, you will need to write all of that manually. Okay, but if you want to support just newer one, you don't have to use the vendor prefix. Always a good idea to do so, but I want to keep things simple here. So I'm going to put a higher number here because 0.2 second, we might not see that very well to make sure that it works fine. So just a high number. And when we're working in manual code like that, then we need to save it. So I'm going to need to save it to see it working. So let's see. And as you can see now, we have a transition. So you might want to leave it like that. 0.5 second, or if you want to have the exact same thing as the original one, it had a value of 0.2. So I'm going to just change that. And it's just a slight transition, but we can see that it's not just one quick transition. Well, in other words, that we don't see any transition at all. So just a slight thing that can improve the look. I'm going to close that now since I don't need it anymore. And the next video will be on those ones here, how to add not only the over effect, but how to add a link to those. Ooh. So, see you soon.